Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And Bill, last time we talked a little bit toward the end of our episode about team identity in the Purchasing of Truth. And I think that the recent event, and I'm going to sort of set this up that we're recording this the day after the first public hearings in the impeachment inquiry in the House of Representatives. Yes. And you and I each, paid attention to what happened yesterday and are aware of it. And there was a very interesting piece done by CNN where they had 6 undecided, voters in Wisconsin watch the hearings together in a room, and after it was over, CNN correspondent asked them some questions, and their answers really do reveal this team identity influencing them. And I don't think they completely approached the hearings, the day one of the hearings anyway, with a completely objective mindset as a result. And I wonder if you can help us understand some of that.
So I'm really glad that we're talking about this, especially after, watching other fellow Americans watch the same thing that I watched. I'm watching the witness, I'm watching the testimony, and then I'm listening to their view of the same thing I watched. So the different people have different blinders that they put up, and the team identity is very tribal. It can be run from a in team sports. It's the head coach is a part of that team identity. I mean, the Patriots love Bill Belichick. It's the team identity. That coach is that leader of that team, and that leader is going to get us there. Well, that team also has a team hat and a team mascot and a team, the team players. These are our players. They're the best players ever. They're the smartest players ever. They're the most skilled players. Even if they're not, the team person that's supporting the fan that's supporting the team has got to support the junkie player on the team too, because they're wearing our colors. They're a part of it, and it's fun. It's fun to root for a team, and then to watch other 6 Republicans that they call themselves undecided about what they're going to vote on the next time. They watch this and they're already saying no to what a person is saying, and not listening to what the person's saying from an observational place. Their brain is already rejecting, because that's the bias that they're looking through, is that filter. So that's a big part of the team identity is that the person's invested into that identity to look that certain way because they voted for it and they have the hat.
So they're already invested in a vote, and it seems that it's harder for them to truly open their minds to see things truly objectively because they're hoping or they want.
Yeah, it's very hard for them to see it objectively. It's very hard for them to, um, Tom, do you have anything in your garage that you don't use anymore?
Of course,
Why do you keep it there?
because I hope I'm going to use it in the future. I think I might use it and need it in the future.
Might need it in the future. If
Yes.
you went out there, would there be really, if you look at the thing in the garage, there's probably about, I don't know, half dozen things that if you thought about it, you're probably not going to use it anymore, but you spent money on it, correct?
Definitely. Yes.
Okay. So would you be willing to consider that you're really keeping it there because you spent money on it and you're holding the value of it?
I think that's fair to say. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I have stuff in my garage too. And this is the belief that something that we paid for, something that we invested in, something that we voted for still has value. And I don't want to get rid of it because it still has value. There's got to be value in that thing, Tom. This person stated that they were going to bring value to my vote. So, my fellow Americans, I have compassion and empathy for how you still have value in the vote that you cast for this person. And this person has done something that is against the primary values that we stand for. He he broke the law in regards to the ethical rule that a head of state is to follow. You are not to take and invite influence from another country into our country. Now, and I'm just quoting the Constitution right now. you know,
Right. Right.
it's and that's a value that needs to be put in proportion to the value that you voted for and you thought you paid for.
Well, this is very interesting, Bill, because, one of the six people in that CNN video piece, these undecided voters, she listens to the whole day and is asked, a question about, did the Democrats do a good job presenting evidence that the president, did this thing that he, was more interested in his own political future than executing American foreign policy. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially the question. And she says, "Well, I think they'd have to have a lot more evidence before I'd be convinced that he really did something wrong." And that answer really indicates that she's struggling with, like you were saying, abandoning that choice that she already made once before.
Yeah, it's hard for her to abandon the choice. A lot more evidence means that, yeah, I invested this thing, and even though the pile up here is this big, and even though the person said they specifically broke the rule, it still doesn't matter because I already invested in this. I am going to keep that broken printer in my garage because I did spend $300 on it. Or $500 on it or $1 on it. It doesn't I am going to keep the little knickknack on top of the shelf along with the 90 other knickknacks because I feel good when I see those things there. Now, that's an example of something I'm seeing. But the challenge is that does that thing have the value? Well, you spent $10 on this knickknack, but it only cost 25 cents to make. It's like, now, am I going to judge that actually, in my voice, it sounds like I'm judging that, but it brings them joy to believe that this president is a good, enthusiastic person that can fight and fire people because they know what they're doing, even though they're breaking rules that by what they're doing. They're not doing things that are in alignment with value, and the long-term cost, they can't see it because it's over there in the garage. It's not, I don't have to face it every day. I made my vote. I'm sticking with that guy. And I might even vote for him again because I made my vote the first time in that direction. And a little bit of how a bias skews the person's thing needs a lot of empathy and compassion around it, because there are some really important things that get met by sticking with a bias, whether it's true or not true. And our brain loves certainty. It likes stability. It really enjoys familiarity. If I could create a story that it's familiar, I will stick with the story, even though 50 people tell me it doesn't equate. So, does that make sense? That there's
It
a
does
familiarity?
yeah, it does completely make sense to me, and it actually really points to why it is so hard to unseat a sitting president running for reelection. When you look at it historically, a president who was elected, who then 4 years later runs again for president, there's it's very hard to get America to vote for somebody new. And it's got to be the same thing of most people that elected him the first time voted for him. They made their choice. That team identity, that need for certainty, that need for stability, need for being right and not having to admit, oh, I made a bad choice, makes it that much harder. Just forget the whole impeachment thing, but makes it that much harder just for a challenger to get elected, like Mitt Romney in 2016. Did I say that right? No, 2012. Sorry, Mitt
12.
Romney in 2012, or
Yes.
like uh, the other JFK, John Kerry in 2004, running against George W. Bush. I mean, that's such a big hill to overcome or mountain to overcome, because you've got to get enough Americans who voted for that guy before, made that choice, to abandon their choice.
Yes, they've you got to get that 20% to move over to the other side and say, hey, wait a minute. That choice I made before, not such a good choice. And it's just like going out into the garage and getting rid of that thing, Tom. Someday you think you're going to use that thing. You know, I mean, Tom, how long has the fondue set been sitting in there?
Oh, when I,
Because
oh, Bill, when I think of all the things that I've carried around from house to house, that I've talked about the environmental impact too, that I've boxed up and packaged and moved and spent fuel transporting, and things that, every time you move, it's an opportunity to, purge and get rid of some of those things. And I try to do that, but I'm still a pack rat at heart, I think.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's that's a good thing to claim. And it does meet the need for certainty that you have stuff. And is, and you can be compassionate about yourself if you just say this, is that I am packing this up because I want to carry the perceived value of this thing to my next location. And as soon as you say that sentence, you go like, it's perceived value. How about
Yeah.
if somebody else can get some value out of it? And then it's easy to put on the curve. You know what? I'm putting this on the curve so somebody else can get value out of this.
Most people would tend to not think that way. They would tend to think, well, if I had to buy a new one, it would cost so much more. and I don't want to have to buy a new one, so I'll keep it just in case for that time when I need it. It's cheaper to keep it than to get rid of it and then need a new one in the future, maybe. But I mean, this is sort of we convince ourselves in
We
our
convince
brain.
ourselves. That's right. The front part of the brain will create a rational sentence to justify what the emotional brain is doing. It's what those voters were talking about. They were making their rational mind work to justify their emotion, the emotional part of their brain. That's what they were doing.
And it must be that there has to be some overwhelming evidence in their mind that really crosses a line with them, that they don't want to be associated with that vote they made, and they want to correct it by making a new vote, maybe.
See, the Nixon tape of Nixon talking about the things specifically coming out of his mouth, okay, and that piece of evidence, and if that were, and because that was in the person, we're going to play this thing if he doesn't resign.
Right.
And these other Democrats are going to, Republicans are good, if they don't vote, and the Republicans on their side was going like, I am not going to be seen. I'm letting, and they let the speaker know of, I cannot stand by this. And the see, this is the this thing that happened is the new off ramp. The new off ramp for the Republicans now. The Republicans senators now have an off ramp. They have a great off ramp.
What is the off ramp? How share that with us.
Well, when this new person says, "I heard President Trump,"
okay,
that's their off ramp. Their off ramp is clear.
This is the news that came out yesterday that Ambassador Taylor, I think it is, has a staffer who the day after the original Ukraine call, so I think that was July 25th, 2019. So July 26th, his staffer is present at a lunch table where Ambassador Sondland either calls President Trump or receives a call from President Trump. I don't recall which way that went, but President Trump is so loud on the phone, the staffer hears what President Trump says, and then Sondland shares after the call what the president said, that all he cares about are the investigations. And I'm paraphrasing, but I don't know the exact quote, but that all he cares about is the investigation into Biden. I mean, that's not quite, we can hear the tape of the president saying it, but a firsthand, witness account.
As soon as he said that, the Republicans have got to gasp, because they're in big trouble. He sits on the stage, he says, "I am under oath." And if he has any confidence or presence, or he's got the confidence, the conviction, the presence, he's got to bring that to that thing. And if he says, not only did I hear it, then Sondland said it was him. So are you going to doubt Sondland saying it was him and also me hearing it was him? Because these are the words. See, the Republicans are going to try to cross-examine with the following sentence. Is that exactly what he said? They're going to try to insert the feelings of doubt or skepticism. It's like and that witness needs to say, "Sir, I am under oath here. This is what he said." See, that kind of conviction is, I heard that. You might want to cause doubt and skepticism, but that's not what happened. I heard, and then Sondland reinforced it.
Well, that's part of what's so puzzling to me about some of the comments in that CNN, first day of the hearing with these undecided voters, because the correspondent asked all of them, do you feel that the witnesses were being truthful? Were they credible? And they all said yes, that none of them had doubt that the witnesses were not being truthful. And yet they still needed more, even when they were very, very credible. So that's sort of puzzling to me. But Bill, you know what? I'm going to make sure in the blog post we have a link to that CNN video so our listeners can see
Good.
how these
Yeah.
people reacted. So go to the
Yeah.
blog post at purchasingtruth.com to check that out if you're listening to this on the podcast or watching the video. But Bill, one thing that is striking to me is that these impeachment hearings, it is very much the rule of law. It is not exactly a trial. It's more like maybe a grand jury proceeding or a deposition that's out open to the public. But these things are done with very black and white thinking.
Yes.
And
you do get stuck.
you mentioned a couple minutes ago, well, you need to approach some of this with compassion and empathy. And gotta tell you, lawyers and prosecutors generally don't approach things with too much compassion and empathy.
No, if I was coaching the congressman, I would probably have had them say, I would probably be utilizing the key words that they're not utilizing. And it would be, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much certainty do you have about this being wrong? Oh, sir, that's a 10. When you think about the American value of integrity, on a scale of 1 to 10, where does this one rate for you? Sir, this is a 10 integrity, because we committed to these people and their lives are on and they're looking for our support to protect themselves. There's lives at stake here, sir. And I'm under oath because I'm fighting for their lives. See, that's a compassionate inquiry. The fact is not as powerful as compassion, because compassion is and I'm pointing to the back of my brain right now, is a very limbic part. It's going like, wait a minute. Certainty is not about my vote anymore. Certainty is about the life of another human being. See, this is an advocacy piece for the lives of human beings. This is not an advocacy piece for somebody stealing $50 off of somebody, which you can
Right.
go to jail for. But but you can't, see, it's really weird, is you can't go to jail for committing to protect somebody's life and then saying, our policy changed. Sorry, we're not protecting your life anymore. You can't go to jail for that. It's like, no, you can't, because it's not written quite that way.
I like your approach to this, and I think if the congressmen and women had a little more, skill at asking questions, or had some just awareness of how compassion and empathy could help, I think they could even direct some of that compassion and empathy to the Republican colleagues on the committee.
Absolutely.
In how they ask some questions. And there was one moment yesterday that I want to bring up that I'm sure you saw as well, that it while it was humorous, it did throw a little compassion and empathy toward one of the Republican congressmen, in part, who was, of course, saying, that, hey, we need to have the whistleblower here, because we need the person. Actually, he didn't say the whistleblower. He actually said, we need to have the person who started this whole thing here and interview them. And we're not being allowed to have the person here. And he's referring to the whistleblower. And after his statement was finished, and I think this was Jim Jordan, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Then another congressman in right after that said, you know what? I agree with you. I think we should have the person that started this whole thing right here. And President Trump is welcome to come and sit in that chair and testify and be questioned. And of course, everybody in the room erupted into laughter, which is a little more scary honesty, because in fact, while the president is, some in the fight of his political life here and being defended by his team, He's not directly participating in it. He won't. There's no way in heck he would ever consider going and answering questions under oath, and he probably shouldn't, because he's incapable.
Well,
of
he wants to.
giving a
He
truthful
wants to be in
answer.
the. He wants to be in that chair. He wants to be in that chair more than anything. He wants to be in that chair because he has made an entire lifetime about spinning things in his positive way to get what he wants. He has made an entire lifetime. Since the age 6, he has done these tactics and techniques. This is a quid pro quo is a 12-year-old's way to get things done. It's a very 8th grade mindset. Now, I just labeled and diagnosed it, the thing. So I'm doing exactly what I tell people not to do. You got to watch how you label and diagnose people, because it gives them a pushback to say, wait a minute, you don't like my guy? This is a guy we voted for. You got to live with it. We lived with your guy. You have to live with our guy. It's that. And the answer to that is that your guy has taken a value that America stands for regarding supporting others, regarding human rights, and the values that what America stands for, and he has done something against the Constitution of the values that both of us share. This is something you need to fight for too, because if you get to be known as this, then people get to take advantage of you too. You don't know that this is a larger cost than just voting for your guy. It just is. The cost is larger. So the empathy and compassion for the president would look like the president was looking for support. He came up with an idea to get support in order to have the messaging being in alignment to meet his need for respect, by taking away the respect of another person, by creating a story around another person, Joe Biden, that isn't true, but it's a story that still to this day is having impact. Because how can somebody fight an imaginary story? Again, if the person's voted for it, I have faith. Now, notice I got a religious word in here. I have faith in Donald Trump because I voted for him. Well, if I have faith, I'm believing in something, that I thought was going to make a difference. Wait a minute, it's not real. Now now all of a sudden, at least in your brain, can you see how an evangelical, a fundamentalist would get stuck here? Because when they push something across the line, they're all in. They're all in. They'll lose their house and give that televangelist all their money. They'll give money to Scientology. They'll give, they're all in. They're all in because the limbic brain can't move off of it. It can't get rid of the clutter in Tom's garage right now.
Right.
Not to personalize it in your direction, but it's not. But we're all human beings in the same kind of way. It's so now all of a sudden I have a lot of compassion for those people, even though a part of me wants to head shake and say, "Gosh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure." The front part of your brain is working the way you would like it to, because this is not in alignment with the way American values are written. It just isn't. Because this is a foreign country. You're asking them to do something that's not true, just so that you can influence the Americans back home. Because
because he fears Joe Biden more than anybody for some reason, and he wanted to sow seeds of doubt and skepticism and have Biden drop in the polls because he thinks he can pick off the other guys and, win more easily against them.
He did it with the entire Republican field. The entire Republican field. Whoever was leading is the one that he attacked and went after.
Right.
Whoever was leading, until he created enough doubt and skepticism about their ability to lead, and he just pounded them until they dropped into the polls, and he was the last man standing. He's the last man standing because he just picked them off one at a time. And he has the thought that he has enough psychological painting, because he's painting on people's psychology is what he's doing. He's painting on a brand imprint. I'm a leader, you're not. That's all he's painting on people. I'm an authoritarian, I get things done. Look at all I've done. I'm the most successful person. It's like saying, better ingredients, better pizza. Well, that's subjective.
It is.
It is
sure.
Subjective, because what's better, and how it's the taste is up to the person that's purchasing it. Well, we'll see what the marketplace says is better. Well, just watch how pizzas are being sold. Guess what? Not better ingredients, better pizzas anymore.
Yeah, no.
So yeah. Anyway, so the marketplace will, is hopefully will deal with this, because the person that's still buying the inferior narrative, the narrative that has been, pushed up, that this person is the best person to do this, is hijacking the brains of so many Americans, and they'll sit here and argue with me. I've go like, okay, so there was a tax cut. That was one thing that was done. Okay, so there was these executive orders that were rollbacks of something that people fought for to, get done. And I'm not sure if it's better that, the Clean Air and the Clean Water Act has been repealed and replaced with something that will make it worse, the environment worse. I think we have to live in the land that we're on, don't we? And do people really need to legislate that? No, pick up your damn trash.
Right.
It's not, this is your land, you get to pollute it the way you want to.
Or get to pollute it for, profit at the expense of, people's health.
The people's health. That's right. This bias, this fallacy of this vote, this hat has value, is very challenging, because the person is rationalizing, just like somebody does at a New Year's party. They're rationalizing the good reason why they're going to start their diet tomorrow while they're eating a cookie tonight. It's like, this moment is the same as the next moment over there. You may want to start with this moment, because you got to manage it moment from moment anyways. Yeah, it's a moment by moment thing. And are we going to stand for, and are we going to start and adjust the Constitution to say it's okay to get support from, this? Yeah. So that for elections and things like that, it's really, really tough, because first world rules are different than second world rules, which are different than third world rules. All those rules are very different. It doesn't mean we don't have a little bit of them each in first world, because
I think maybe the lines are being blurred right now, aren't they?
That's correct. Yeah, it's collapsing down. It's like we're kind of a first world country, but we're kind of doing some second world values, so some of the authoritarian values we're doing, and it's because the values of, and the integrity of people that are holding those values are just putting a hat on called Republican or putting a hat called Democrat and fighting for that and saying, well, instead of what's best for America, they're going like, what's best for my vote? And how can I hijack this person's brain? And this is how I'm going to do that.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
it's unsettling.
that is unsettling.
So we're going to get a chance to see from this person that heard the phone call. That's what we're going to do next.
Oh, I can't wait.
And what we're going to look at, Tom, next time is what does it take to overcome the belief bias? Because regrettably, Lady Justice is holding the scales, and it seems like one piece of bias is equated to 20 parts of truth. Just see, you know the scales, right?
Oh, yeah.
Lady Justice, right? So you have one piece of bias. I voted for him, and he was a disruptor, and I voted for the disruptor. And that disruptor has been getting things done because he's holding things up that have been signed that are tragic. So he's doing things. And I wanted somebody to do things to mess things up, because that's what I voted for.
Drain the swamp, right? Yeah.
Right, the swamp. It's like, well, that's not what's happened.
No.
What's happened is that we have a, swamp leader.
Yes,
Yeah,
we do.
but,
all right. Well, I like that. I like that metaphor. It's definitely shows you the disproportionality of a piece of bias to an awful lot of truth.
right.
And I like how, we talked about how despite the truth, it may not be enough. You've got to still bring out compassion and empathy.
Yeah. So if there is a smart person that gets to the end of this podcast, the words that I would request that the Adam Schiff and the rest of the Democrats start using is words like certainty, stability, consistency, validation, reassurance, trust, truth. See, that vocabulary has some compassion built into it, so that the person that has voted for Trump can have an off ramp. They need a psychological off ramp to get from here to there, because right now it's really hard for them to get to the off ramp. As during the Nixon, I'll never forget this. During the Nixon impeachment, I was a young man, and I was working for my boss, wonderful guy, and he was a Republican guy, and we were sitting at a party, and he said, I just couldn't believe it when I heard the tapes. The language that he was using was so disrespectful, and he was the Republican guy,
right?
So and it's not until he heard the voice of the President Nixon saying and doing the things that was there's the shooter, there's the gun, there's the bullets, he pulled the trigger. It's almost like the bias needs that thing to tip the scale off and go like, yeah, he kind of is a crook.
People need to see, the evidence, which I think is true. But then again, we often say, explanation and arguing the facts don't always help you. And I think the hearings are bearing out a bit of that. I would like to see the Democrats asking questions approach it with a little more compassion and empathy, in a way to not just get the witness to answer the question, which is obviously the direct thing they're trying to do, but indirectly be speaking to that undecided voter
Yeah.
in showing them some compassion
Yeah.
and helping them, feel better about not just sticking with that team
No, it's sticking
because
with America.
yeah,
Yeah.
stick with America.
You got to
I
stick with
like that.
America. You got to stick with America at the end of this. You got
Yeah.
to stick with America. It's like, hey, we gave him the shot. Hey, he passed on the shot about him doing that. I mean, Trump will propagate or promote propaganda. His propaganda is, I'm the most transparent. I've been transparent. Wait till you see this second phone call. It's like how many times has the con man got to go back and say, wait a minute, and there's more, but I'm not showing you all the things that are behind this curtain, but I'm going to show you this first phone call that was really so much better than that second phone call. It's like, anyway, so
Oh my goodness, we're through the looking glass, it seems, in some ways.
down the rabbit hole, baby.
All right. Well, thanks, Bill. I'm looking forward to next time to see how impactful this next witness is and to talk about that bias versus truth.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.